We're joined now. I'm going to be on his show a little bit later this afternoon. He may not even know. I don't know if he's seen the rundown of guests yet. But I will be on with Larry Kudlow in the Fox Business Studios as we put a bow on what has been another wild week of stock market action. And Larry, we appreciate you coming on with us. This is the third straight day, I believe, that we have had major economic breakdowns in the second hour of the show, which doesn't happen all the time. We had an Art Laffer a couple of days ago at this time, Stephen Moore yesterday. Pleased to be joined by you now. And so, Mr. Kudlow here, what would you say to this huge audience out there that we should know as we sit here on Friday and the trade war between the United States and Canada, in terms of like hockey fight, both sides have thrown down the gloves, right? We've got the stare down going on. The punches are being thrown.
Well, Clay, it really is. It's if you're looking for a trade war, I guess it's China-U.S. The Canadian part is pretty quiet right now. In fact,
right,
Canada and their new Prime Minister, what's his name, Mark Carney. I know the guy is a central banker. He wants to do a deal with Trump. He wants to do a deal. So that's not the issue. But look, what I think, the major point here is Trump is waging war and fighting back against unfair trading policies and rules over the past many decades, probably have to go into the mid to late 90s. And the key point is, first of all, China was allowed most favored nations, and that meant that, we could trade with them without any legal constraints. And then they entered the World Trade Organization, WTO, in, I believe, the year 2000. All right. And so what did they do? They basically had very high tariffs, much higher than ours, okay? I mean, their average tariff rate was 30, 40%. The United States, 2.5%, 2.7%. That disadvantage to us was that, that means we can't sell to them because their tariffs are so high and they price out our goods. But they love to sell to us, and with cheap goods, their government, it's a communist country. Their government subsidizes all production and wages, so they keep the wages low. They keep the production low because it's all government subsidized. So they're selling cheap stuff to us, and we have virtually no tariff. We can't, and we can't sell to them because they have a high tariff. All right, and what that did, their cheap goods, which went on for 25 years, did great damage to America's heartland, the manufacturing and automobiles and steel and, you name it. And the results show that. We lost hundreds of thousands of factories closed. We lost jobs. So that has to stop. All right. And the fact is also, it's not just China, for heaven's sakes. You go around the world, you look at the EU, high tariffs and, what Trump calls correctly non-tariff barriers, which means regulations. Like they can't buy – the European Union won't buy a lot of our food because they have all kinds of crazy regulations on food, okay? So that's a non-tariff barrier. Or, for example, right now, our social media companies are faced – and our techie companies, they're trying to put a tax on any internet service companies. Okay, so that that has to change. It's an unequal position. It's not a level playing field, and it's done damage to our economy. Trump is exactly right here. Now, it's a hard thing to do. I get that, and I think his shock therapy a week ago or 10 days ago did shock the financial markets and probably shocked a lot of ordinary folks, wake-up call. The liberal media is trying to kill him with it. I'm trying to defend him, along with a bunch of people. I think he's doing the right thing. And, the most recent point, yesterday, 2 days ago, he declared a 90-day pause on the tariffs that we would be charging other countries. He raised those charges, but he did it because 75 countries came to him. And Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, and Jameson Greer, the trade representative, and said, no, we want to do business. We don't want to pay these tariffs. We want to do business. We want to level the playing field. We want to make a deal. All right? And right now there's a bunch of very hot deals on the front burner. Vietnam and Taiwan and South Korea and India. Front burner, Argentina is another one. Even the European Union talked about zero tariffs on all goods. That won't be sufficient because of their non-tariff barriers. But the point is, they came to us. They didn't go to China. They came to us. And so Trump suspended his tariff charges, reciprocal tariff charges, and we're going to make deals. And it's a very good thing. Not easy to do. Maybe it could have been handled a little better, maybe a little more gradual, but I don't really feel like second guessing him. Trump's a very good negotiator. After that shock and awe on, what did he call it, Liberation Day, I mean, all these countries came to us, all right? They didn't go to China. They want to deal with us.
Talking to Larry Kudlow here. You can watch him on Fox Business. I'll be on with him later this evening in the Fox studios. What does a successful trade policy with China look like to you? Let's pretend you were a mediator. I know you're obviously skewed in favor of the United States, but let's pretend you were hired as a mediator. You're very knowledgeable economically, and your job was to bring a solution to the United States and China. What does fair trade policy with China actually look like?
If I were a China mediator, I'd probably resign and look for another job. That's what I'd have to do.
But what does a successful trade package look like in terms of if we could finally get a resolution? What would it look like from your perspective?
I was on the China trade team.
Yep.
In the first term. Okay, I spent 2 years. All right, our team leader was Robert Lighthizer, Bob Lighthizer, who, by the way, is a genius on this stuff. Steve Mnuchin, then the Treasury Secretary, he was handling the financial companies. I was NEC Director. Wilbur Ross was Commerce Secretary. Wilbur was on the show last night. He and I handled the commodities section. We had a huge, we spent almost 2 years. We made a deal. It was, China trade deal phase 1. And it was signed in early January of 2020. And it included provisions to stop intellectual property theft, to allow American companies to operate in China as American-run companies, not Chinese-run companies. So the forced technology transfer would go away. Anyway, we did this whole deal, and they did not implement any of it. And then, of course, in January of 2020, China already knew that they were stuck with this COVID disease, this COVID virus, and they tried to cover it up. And we learned there are always rumors, and we learned in literally the next couple of weeks in January that China was suffering from a countrywide virus. And then, of course, the rest is history. Now, they say they didn't implement the deal because of COVID, okay? But COVID has been gone for a couple of years, and China has not come back to the deal. So I'm saying to you, it's always possible that we could go back and work through commodities, financial companies, insurance companies, intellectual property theft, forced transfer of technology, American ownership, lower tariffs, get your tariffs down, along with all the non-tariff barriers. It's possible we could go back and conduct a China deal, phase 2. All right? It's possible. It would look a lot like phase 1. They'd have to change their laws, which they never did. By the way, part of that deal was stop producing the parts for fentanyl and other drugs. They promised they would do that. In dinner in Buenos Aires in Argentina, I was there. It was a G20 meeting, U.S., China. The first question Trump asked Xi was, will you stop producing fentanyl, and might you put a capital punishment on people producing fentanyl? And Xi, without batting an eye, said, yes, we will do that. And, of course, he lied through his teeth, right? This was in I don't know, probably sometime in late 2019.
What do you think?
Autumn of 2019.
No, this is all great detail. What do you think? We know kind of, because you know Trump well, we kind of have a sense how Trump is responding. What do you think Chairman Xi's advisors are telling him right now in China? How much do you think they are panicked about where we are right now? How would you assess leverage negotiating ability here vis-a-vis U.S. and China?
Look, the reality in the economy is the United States, with a tariff of 145%, the United States is no longer a customer of cheap China goods.
Yep.
Period. Full stop. Okay? That will ruin an economy that's still reeling from a real estate collapse bust that happened a couple of years ago, and they still haven't recovered from that. Now, the thing about Xi is he has economic advisors. By the way, I knew some of them because we worked well, and a couple of them were pretty good reformers, I might add. But Xi doesn't listen to them. You talk to people, as I have, who are still operating, Americans who are still operating in China, particularly the insurance industry, which has a long history in China, American-owned. Okay. They will tell you that Xi Jinping is not just the head of the Communist Party. He views himself as an emperor. As an emperor. They're running pictures and clips of Mao Zedong right now. I don't know if you've seen any of this stuff. One of the all-time great killers in humanity. Xi thinks he's emperor. All right? And he's running the show. And if you don't do what he wants, you're out. And so I think it's almost impossible at this point. They may be brought to their knees on economic grounds. They still have a very strong military. They're pouring money into the military, as I'm sure you know. They had military exercises circling Taiwan the minute Pete Hegseth left after his meetings in Taiwan. So the military side is very difficult, and that goes along with the economic side. So I'm not optimistic about this. But here's the point. We don't need them. We don't need them, okay? I know there's supply chains that have to be altered. I get that. But Vietnam, which is a communist country, has become an American ally. And they want to make a deal, and they can produce the same goods that China did. Malaysia, the same story. Cambodia, the same story. India, the same story. Korea, the same story. Taiwan, the same story. It's not like transshipping anymore where China would use another country to get around the tariff. They're doing it themselves now. They've grown up. Their economies have grown up. So I don't think we need them. And I think that Xi has gotten boxed in. Trump completely outboxed him on this. China has nowhere to turn. Now, I'm reading in the papers, Xi is going to Europe, okay, to try to bring them on his side. They won't because they suffer the same problem. China sends cheap goods, cheap cars, undercutting everybody, Mercedes-Benz, into Europe. And Europe is sick of it. And Europe is talking about tariffs on China. Even Mexico, all right? China used Mexico to transship, fentanyl for one thing, but also automobile parts and so forth. Mexico is slapping tariffs on China. So China can do it and go wherever they want, but right now they're at the short end of the stick. Trump knows this, right? And he will keep tightening the noose around China. You watch, you wait and see.
Larry Kudlow, I will see you in a little bit in the Fox Business Studios. Keep up the good work. Appreciate the time today.
You got it. Anytime. Take care. See you later. Bye-bye.